Welcome back to the Weekly Juice Podcast. As always, Ryan and Corey here with you. Today we are on episode 18. We have special guest Paul Beckles coming on. When I think of this episode, I think of two quotes. One is your network. Wow, your network is your net worth. And another one is, if you find your passion and you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And Paul talks a lot about how he got to his very successful role with Converse and Nike, and honestly, mentorship and his network along the way, and how he gives back and still continues to find the full circle of networking. And it's a very powerful episode. If you're into mindset and network and brand and all of the above, you're going to love this episode.
Yeah. Paul's one of my, he's really one of my good friends. And to have him on this episode talk about, he gives tangible advice about what he did in his, kind of grinding days, working in his mid-20s to kind of get to where he is now. Not that he's done, but he has a very high level position with Converse hoops, Converse basketball. And it's like, I've just seen the guy grow, and he talks a lot about his network. And I think there's some seriously good advice. He also has a real estate portfolio on the side too, very small one, but he has a plan to try to build some financial independence for himself. So it's a good overall episode, network. And let's jump in.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So Paul Beckles, if you could just give a little background on yourself, where you're from, what you do, some goals maybe in life, and go from there.
Cool. Paul Beckles. I'm born in Barbados, beautiful island in the Caribbean. When I was about 6 years old, came over and I moved to Philadelphia. Culture shock. My adolescence between Philly, Delco, trying to figure it out. I definitely embraced, and ultimately I feel like really grew to embody kind of like a Philly kid type of mentality. I rep it hard and everywhere I go. And I think coming out of my cultural background mixed with this kind of, embracing my environment and taking on a mindset that I think really made me tough enough to probably take on the aspirations and goals that I had in life. I simply took this. When I was young, it wasn't so great because I got in a lot of trouble of believing that I wanted to do things my way. I really wanted to just do what I wanted to do. And I was also a really curious kid. So I asked a lot of questions, or I went places to try to seek out something that I was told probably wasn't supposed to be there. So I kind of really took that and made that kind of my North Star, in that spend a lot of time trying to figure out what it is that really moves me. What am I really passionate about? Let's do as much of that as possible. So I think, if you think about, if I get into it at some point, when I talk about what my goals are, they really stem from that, of either directly correlated to a passion and an interest that I really just want to make a part of my life every single day, or something that I'm passionate or interested enough about that I feel like will at some point afford me more of something else that I really want. So
Awesome.
That's pretty much it.
That's a great segue. And just to give people some background on Paul. So I used to work for the 76ers and I managed their camps. Paul was in my position before I got to the Sixers, and he was somebody who legitimately taught me how to do that job and do it what I thought was a pretty good job of it. But he did that before me. And then I watched Paul grow from going to the Sixers to going to work for, at some capacity, working for Drexel, and then working for Athletes First, and kind of just growing your career towards what has always been trending in sports, because it's something that you love. You've always worked in sports, and now you work for Converse or Nike, one and the same, doing, again, something you love, which is highly important. And things that we talk about here is that we wake up every day and we're like, I just don't think you're meant to be miserable on this planet. It's just a waste of time. So why not embrace it and try to do things that you love? I think Can you just talk about your growth from maybe your position at the Sixers? And you don't have to hit every I probably missed a couple stops along the way, but you now work for Converse, and just like a little bit about what you do for them now, like what your role is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think the core of kind of my career has always pretty much been centered around basketball because that's my passion. Uh, I live, eat, sleep, breathe it. So, and for most of my career, I feel like there was an added element that gave me an advantage by like being really in tune with the game and the culture of the game.
Yep.
Now I think it's more important than it ever has been, but because I was connected from a work standpoint to something that I was going to be involved in and be around anyway outside of work. Like I said, it allowed me to bring a lot of that stuff into work and make it an advantage. But yeah, started out with the Sixers, really kind of grew up with that organization. Obviously being a fan first,
Yeah.
hometown kid, like it was definitely, the dream job, if you want to call it that, to have it as my first job out of college. So, when I started there, did I have aspirations of like becoming, getting to a high level? Yeah, but I didn't see it being anywhere other than the Sixers and right where
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah.
But like anything else, I was fortunate to move around, have different experiences within the organization, and start to understand the business like more holistically, as opposed to like just one dimension, looking at things the same way every single day and doing the same job. And as I started to do that and see more, I started to be like, yo, there's way more to this than I think I realized. And that's where like that curiosity thing for me starts to really take over. So I was like, I want to understand those things. I want to know who's doing those things really well. And as I did that, I started to get that itch of like, I wanted more responsibility. I wanted to learn how to do things differently. And, I came to a point where I was like, I feel like what I'm looking for may be outside of this organization. And fortunately enough, I actually got a call. So it wasn't necessarily me proactively looking. I got a call about a dope opportunity. So I went to Learfield IMG, and I worked in college athletics. Amazing job, great people to work with. Um, I can't say anything bad about the organization or the people. But what I will say is, pretty quickly into that job, I learned a few things. One, my job at that point in time was to really think about, at varying levels, I think 19 varsity sports, right? And it became pretty evident quickly that I only cared about one.
Oops. Yeah.
Which was basketball.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, maybe in a space.
You found yourself doing something like outside of that realm, right? That you didn't want to do. And you were like, wait, I'm worried about field hockey or whatever it is. And you're like, It didn't work. That's how you knew it didn't work for you, right?
1000%. So it started to be like, okay. And I'm not great with faking the funk. Like, if I don't care, I don't care. I'm usually hot or cold. Like, there's not really in between.
So, yeah, I show the emotions on the sleeves, man.
Yeah. You'll know I don't want to be here, or I'm.
I feel that. I feel that
immediately.
Oh man, but
I don't hide that really well. So anyway, it was a little. I want to finish that thought around. Like, I think when I got there, and the things that I realized, one was what that burning passion really was, and then the second thing was, it was also, for the first time, I was in a space where it was like all about a sales culture. It was predominantly a middle-aged white man around me. It was a space where it wasn't me.
Yeah, you didn't feel like
nothing. I can't say anything bad about it. Like, they didn't mistreat anybody. It's actually they treated their employees really well, et cetera, et cetera. But it just became this culmination of, I don't feel comfortable in this space, and I'm forced to like be responsible and be aware of, at a high level, things that I just really don't care that much about.
Yeah.
And it was right around when I had my first kid, and I went through this phase of like, yo, what do you want in life? And again, that's like, I gotta get to like, what is it that I want, so I can just run towards that.
So it's so important to find that clarity, is what you're saying, right? And that's like,
and it takes real work, because I think about it this way. I think I might have spent almost 2 years in that role. I probably I started to get these feelings
checked out after 3 months.
But I never checked out. But like 6 months in, I was like, all right, yo, This is it.
Yeah, right. I mean, the thing about that is like that's knowing yourself, right? Like that's knowing yourself, and not to say that you didn't do your job for the 18 months after that. You did, but you're plotting. You're plotting.
Yeah. So a lot of people hit that wall, right?
To figure out. Would you say that? My bad.
It's all good. I said a lot of people hit that wall and they don't know where to go from there. And you talked about curiosity, and I think that might parlay into networking a bit. Like, how did you personally use your network to propel yourself to the next level? Yeah. And kind of.
That's a fire question and the perfect segue. It probably took me another like 6 to 10 months of like purposefully every single day putting thought into like what I would like to do, what it could look like, what are those opportunities out there, where and what companies do they exist, where are they predominantly located, is this a situation if I need to start thinking about, am I trying to figure out how to get to the West Coast, whatever the case may be. And I got some great advice from a mentor, which was, it's okay to not know, and sometimes we can aimlessly search for things, and what's the biggest help is the more insight that you can get, like it typically points you in a direction.
Yep.
Right. And what I did was I literally just started calling any and everybody that was either somebody I looked at as a mentor or somebody doing dope things, and to be like, yo, I'm doing lunch. Let's do lunch. I would try to go to lunch with like three people a week. And just through like talking out loud about my feelings and my interests, like through other people giving me feedback is what helped me start to clarify that picture that I was so dearly looking to see. And it became about, for me, a couple things: culture, creativity, and hoops.
Yep.
And that was the only reason I landed on, I want to go work at a creative advertising agency. Literally had no interest prior or never even thought about it. But got to that point, and then it was like who's the dopest agency out there? Like, who's doing all the cool stuff? Who touches a bunch of these different points of culture? And that's how I landed on Translation, Steve Stout's advertising agency.
Okay.
And when I tell you fate, you talk about networking, Bev, like it was, I literally was on the website a couple days a week, just sitting there, like just looking at it, reading, trying to think, plot, like you said. And literally just this one random day after months, I click on the like people page, and I'm like just playing around. I'm like, wait, this dude right here looks familiar. I'm like, wait, JP? I know that guy. And long story short, I had a friend who was already working there, put me in touch with a few people. I go on for an interview. The guy I'm interviewing with is a guy that I had crossed paths with before.
Yep.
It all comes full circle. I land this dope job. I go up there helping to manage the Brooklyn Nets business as the agency, doing all of their marketing. Lucked up into a situation where, I had an amazing boss, big brother, now, a mentor, and, his boss being our CEO, a Black man, a culture pusher. So all of a sudden, I was in a space where I felt more comfortable, like-minded people, very entrepreneur spirited folk. Like, it was definitely a challenge of a transition, but like, it was more of like, I could wake up and go get after that challenge with energy every single day, because it was the space, it was the people, it was the business, it was the culture and things that I wanted so dearly. So
Paul, I think you gave people some serious action steps there too, which is really important that I wanted to note. Like you just said, I plan 3 lunches a day. I proactively went after my network and then their surrounding network and said, I'm going to meet with 3 people. I'm sorry, 3 people a week. Is that what you said? 3 lunches. Yeah, you don't have 3 lunches a day. 3 lunches a week. And then that allowed you that ability to say, okay, I have options. Who does this person know that knows this person? But all you did was start with like your network, right? And then it expanded from there. We're not asking, and like, I wouldn't tell people, I hate those big networking seminars. Sometimes I have to go to them for work, but where you're like handing out business cards to random people. Sometimes they're great, but you started with people that you knew. And then that led you to the next step.
To me, that's the part of networking that traditionally people think like, I got to network up. Big position, successful, senior, that's the person who can help me figure out what I need to figure out to get there. Yo, networking across, like your peers, your friends,
horizontal,
too much value in it. and networking down. I call it networking down, which is at some point, I don't think there's like a point in which you should start until you're willing to make the commitment to do it. But like you can be a mentor and networking down. Like I can tell you how important networking down is for me now, where I think about all of the kids that I've coached, maintained a relationship with. Guess what? Those are the same kids now I text when I'm like, yo, what do you think about this? Or like, who's like a new hot artist? Because guess what? I'm getting to that age. I don't know everything that's really happening and what's cool.
Yeah.
You know how much value I get out of our relationship and them being able to give me insights and help me, you give me things to think about.
Yeah.
You know, like networking is a circle, man. It is not just networking up.
You're so right. And I think Rob was about to touch on something, but like the whole point of where you think networking is like going to talk to and like, this is sad that it's looked at like this, but you're going to talk to the 60-year-old white guy, like who has the tie on, you know what I mean? It's like, that's, first of all, that's like not how that shit works, but you have so many people in your network that knows somebody here, has an uncle, has a father, has this, that can help you get to those places. And you can kind of start with, like, you really probably know more people than you think. So yeah. I think that's really cool. Can you just talk about where you are now and like kind of just a little brief description of your role for Converse?
Yeah, 1000%. One last thing I'll touch on networking too is like,
yeah,
I think all people also only think about, okay, once I get to know this person, who do they know that they can put me in touch with, right? Certainly valuable, because then an endorsement, right, or an introduction that comes with some sort of recommendation, right, definitely goes a long way. But I feel like people oftentimes like look over the fact that knowledge is just as powerful. Like somebody giving you a perspective that you didn't see, somebody giving you like a peek behind something at a higher level of how something really works. Like there's a lot of game that you can get that just helps inform how you move better. And that to me is networking as well. Like you have enough of that, and you add value, you get a bunch in return, and it helps you see things differently. And the more awareness you can have of the world around you is everything.
Paramount. Yeah. And it's not just like you said, it's not just like who can help me get to where I want to go. It's
right.
It's like all, you're talking perspectives too, which is
1000%.
like, that's, you know, I oftentimes talk to you personally about what you feel about certain things. And it's just like, I don't know that we look up or down in talking about that about each other, but just having different perspectives of somebody like you has a totally different background than me. Like that is organic networking right there, right?
1000%.
Yeah.
1000%. So yeah.
Before you touch on, before I have my question, can you touch on just your kind of last role that you have now, like what propelled you from the agency?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a couple or one other stop between agency and now, but my current role is global brand director for Converse basketball. So I lead marketing and trying to reestablish our brand back in this category, back in this space. You know, most people know, for those that don't, you know, Converse is the original basketball brand. We were the first basketball sneaker. So obviously our heritage is deep. We're connected to the game, but we've been out of the game for an extended period of time. And, you know, this game is like happening at a rapid speed every single day. So you think about, you know, a decade away, we definitely have our work cut out for us to kind of figure out where our space is, what we can contribute, and, you know, ultimately have people be a part of the conversation, have people consider us as, you know, a premium product and, you know, a brand that stands for something, means something. And we can hopefully win consumers. But it's a really fun job and a fun opportunity, and, you know, filled with just a ton of potential. So definitely enjoying the grind that we're on right now.
Yeah. Just to give people some background on like Paul, and Paul has taught me so much about, and not so much in the past couple of years, but like 5-6 years ago when we worked together for the Sixers, just taught me so much about mentoring people in general and mentoring kids, because I coach at the high school level. And you've taught me so much just about how to navigate conversations with different people. And that's why you're one of the reasons why I love mentoring kids from so many different backgrounds, because I mean, it's just afforded me the ability to have our first role. Actually, we coached together at Valley Forge Military Academy,
Yeah.
and that was my first coaching role, but I've since moved on. But just some of the values that you've instilled in me without you probably even knowing, I just wanted to mention that there. I think we can kind of segue into a little bit of, did you have a question?
I have one more.
Yeah.
So I just think it's awesome that you've bounced around a couple different spots. Not really bounced around, but propelled your career. I guess it's a few questions in one, but a lot of people will hit that wall, right? And they don't know, they know they want something more, but they don't know what it is and where it is. And then say they do find it, they oftentimes don't have, not the backbone, but have the gall to go do it. And if it, like, when you're like kind of comfortable in a role, right? And you're like, this could be cool, but I'm kind of safe where I'm at. You've moved cities a couple times,
Yeah.
and you have a family, which
Yeah.
I think is important. And do you attribute that to having a strong, I guess a strong family or support system, or are you just like, hey, listen, like, this is my goal in life, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to go for it no matter what, and you guys are along for the ride? Like, what's your take on all that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and the oversimplified answer is yes, it's all of that, because you can certainly, you have the freedom to go out and do what you want, right? But if it's not in the best interest of those around you that are also invested in your every single day, obviously that's not going to work all the time. So for me, I think it starts with, listen, my wife and I have been together in some capacity for like 15 years now. So that, like, overly ambitious, like, I'm about to just go do this, she's known since day one.
Used to that.
Yeah.
She's known since day one.
He hasn't really had a choice.
So you fast forward, and I'm just like, this is an amazing opportunity. It makes sense. It's then the third, career-wise, here's my pros and cons as I see it for the family. And it's like, I really feel like I need to go do this. Unless the cons were just so glaring that I had this romanticized vision of, like, they were not as bad as they were, and she was able to bring me back down to reality. She's like, I know that he's really,
you're going to take care of it. Yeah.
If it makes sense and we can make it work, let's go do it. So, I definitely appreciate the support system I have in her. I mean, my wife is, she's a trooper. Like, she's tough as nails. She's from North Philly. Like, she's not a joke in terms of just a pushover. So, because I know if I'm able to win her over or get her to buy into something, like, that only just gives me more confidence.
You hit on something really important, I think, that we probably haven't talked about at all on this. And, like, if you have a significant other, we talk a lot about real estate and personal finance and, like, going after those goals and pursuing that. If you have somebody who's on your team who is going to bat for you every single day and trusting you, how much easier is that for you to go achieve those goals? And I think that that's, like, how you, and we're not matchmakers here, but, like, that compatibility where someone's like, I'm with you. Like, my girlfriend, we're not engaged or married or anything, but, like, I see that with her where it's like, that's important to have somebody in that same spirit as you.
You're trying to get them points right now. You're trying to get those points.
Name or tag her?
Nah, should we mention her?
Yeah, she's going to be listening. Brownie points.
Nah, listen, man, I hear you and I feel you, because, like, I can straight up tell you that is my biggest cheerleader. And sometimes I get so, tunnel vision and focus on some other things, which is a part of my role, in our partnership. It's like, just know, I know she's there and she's right next to me and she's holding me down. And also, she's added a ton of value in my life. When we talk about personal finances, you talk about, like, trying to make progress and, see financial freedom and things like that. Like, I can tell you straight up, I have the most terrible habits when it comes to money.
Paul, it's a great segue. Let's talk about this.
I spend money. It's what I do. But it's my wife who introduced me to a budget a long time ago, and Excel spreadsheet. She's a person who was like, no. you can't just keep all of your money in your checking because you're going to spend all of the money.
No, Paul, let me segue this, because I think it's a great place that you went there with that, because we do talk about that a lot on our podcast. But we talk about high performing. Essentially you have a high performing career in a corporate environment, right? Corporate may not be the right word, because corporate makes it sound like it's like super buttoned up, but it's more so like
it's a corporation.
Because look, Nike and Converse, like that's the corporate world, and you love what you do. But on the side of that, you've also built a small real estate portfolio. And I wanted to touch on that because I wanted to talk about something that you mentioned about a 10-year plan to kind of reach that financial freedom that you talked about. So can you just touch on what your real estate portfolio is like and why you even decided to dive down that rabbit hole?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. So first, I'll try to like give my take on financial freedom, because I don't know what the actual definition of it is, but for me, it has always meant like in this desire to kind of, feel like I'm living my life as I want to. The reality is, now that I have a family, I have like significant responsibility. And if somebody else were to decide that I was no longer a fit, or whatever the reason was,
Yeah.
they didn't want to.
You're talking about an employer?
Yes, an employer. They didn't want to employ me. My entire sense of freedom in that I can provide for my family, we can eat, we can do certain things, all of that kind of fun thing is in their hands. And that for me makes me hella uncomfortable.
Yeah, I know.
And
that's why we started the podcast, literally.
Like, fam, that's like not cool.
Yeah.
So for me, financial freedom became about, all right, how do I get to a position where passively through other means can I generate my own money, so that if all of a sudden theirs went away, I can still pay my bills.
Yep.
My family can still eat.
Yep.
We're okay, right? So I don't think it has been much more than that in terms of like, I'm not trying to hit a certain level of status in terms of I want to be a millionaire or, anything like that. So for me, now we back up to like, all right, how do you get there? How do you achieve that? For me, I was fortunate. I would say two resources that have been invaluable to me. One, above anything else, is people. And I think about some of my closest friends. One of them being my buddy Ty Hope, who has a mortgage brokerage. He's now he's pretty much touched every kind of aspect of real estate and self-taught, right? Like any and everything within that space he did on his own and learned by trial and error. Then obviously formal training. He's definitely got an MBA. Like he's got more than enough on paper, right, to support his advanced knowledge in the space. But a lot of it came from real life experiences as well. So being one of my closest friends, and then on top of that, probably the other like really successful real estate person that I know is a longtime childhood friend. We used to have battles on the court, play basketball at West Catholic, is a successful real estate agent, has a bunch of, a portfolio of his own, done flips, kind of everything under the sun. So like literally, if you think about just proximity to people that I didn't have that barrier of like, how do I get this knowledge? How do I go about getting it if I know there's a person that's advanced in it, right? How do I know they're giving me the real? I had people that I could literally get like the playbook, for lack of a better phrase. So then now all of a sudden, every real estate transaction I've done, the real estate agent is my homie. So half the time, I'm probably still not even that educated as I should be, having gone through, a few transactions, because I have a great deal of trust in an expert who lives in it every single day.
Yep.
So for that reason, real estate was super interesting to me, because it actually, another element to real estate for me was this sense of like beautifying something. The creative muscle in me thoroughly enjoyed seeing a house that is in shambles maybe it's not. It could be in decent condition.
Yeah.
Just a little creativity with vision and like effort, like how beautiful it can be.
And
Um,
increase the value, by the way, which is great too, right? Like that's the
so
whole
that's
thing.
it. It's like, wait, the natural interest that I have in being creative within this space actually pays dividends. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
I can definitely get down with that. Um, so I think like that personally was my connection to real estate.
Right.
And then it just seemed like a really smart business. Like it's complex, but it wasn't like one of those like priced outside of my, my wheelhouse in terms of like, can I get my head around this and understand it? So I
Yeah.
would say people around me, kind of exposed me to it. And then I think that connection of the creative expression that can be a part of real estate is what really made me kind of lock in on it.
It's an interesting take on it, which
And
I love.
lastly, I think we all probably heard that if you are interested in real estate at all, but it's like real estate's made more millionaires than anything else. Like
Yep.
that was probably like the finishing touch where I was like, okay, I'll keep it simple and stick with that.
Yeah, yeah, don't reinvent the wheel. And so you're not what you're saying, and I think a lot of people might resonate with is like they have their 9 to 5, they like it. Maybe they don't, they want to get out of it and get into a different one that they like, but they like a job that they have. And you're using real estate as like almost like a safety net, right? You're not saying that you want to go build this Grant Cardone empire, this big
Right.
empire, but you want it to be there and to kind of sustainably build on top of each other just in case.
Yep.
Because things might not work out. You know what I mean? Like we just had a freaking pandemic that ran through our country. Who the hell knows what's going to happen in the next 10 years?
That is a
Like,
fact.
so can you just talk a little bit about your, like, if you're willing, about your unit, like how many units you have and just like what your portfolio is like?
Yeah, so it's actually it's only one at the moment. Sold a single family in March, and then have a 2-unit property.
Okay.
Both have rented consistently since I had it, and in the market to buy another multifamily before the end of the year. So again, like small, manageable, and when I say manageable, like there's a reality there that I definitely had to face. And because originally I was managing by myself, like I was taking the calls.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know, that is not for the faint of heart. And it was
Not
cool.
when you work the way that you work too. Like
Yeah,
you're
1,000%. It's
you're
like
on the road. You are. Yeah.
I don't have the time for it. Like that's just like sorry.
Yeah.
um,
Say sorry to yourself, or you say sorry to your bro.
I don't know what else to tell them, but
Yeah.
so it actually is only within the last year that I hired a property manager, which has completely changed my entire life. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things that slow and steady, progress over perfection. For me, I've been able to look at what the future holds in a way where I'm not overextending myself. I believe financially, I'm
Yep.
overextending myself from a time commitment, from an effort standpoint. Like it's like the potential that it holds for what I have to invest, or what I should say what I have available to invest, is like the sweet spot for me. So,
Yep.
slowly but surely, like you mentioned, a 10-year plan to get to a point where, I have an income that, again, I may not need to have a day job and I can live life a certain way. But also, too, I think then I have assets that put me in a position one day that if I did have a dream and a vision, because I think about those people that has a successful careers doing something, and that one day they decide like it was time for them to go out and do their own thing. Like sounds easy, right? But
Yeah.
like you think about the first thing that you need is resources, right?
Capital. Or
So
yeah.
capital, resources, and I don't envision again if I got to a point that I wanted to do that in life, that like I got to figure out who I can borrow from and go to a bank, like not right off the bat. Like, I
Yep.
want to know that I have something I can bring to the table to invest in myself, right?
Well, Paul, if you think about it like this, like you have like almost like a get rich slow plan, and not that 10 years is slow because, and I'm sure you make a great living in your 9 to 5 too. But my point is, like, if you just bought a property like once out of every 2 years, 2 or 3 years, and you just kind of slowly chugged along and stacked, you would turn around in 15 years and have 6, 7 properties that you can look at that generate, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 of income if you do it the right way. And then you can say, if you really did want to leave your job, which by the way, I don't think you will, because I think you might be the CEO of Nike by then. But what I'm saying is that you can be like, look, we can live if we had to live. And that's the
100%.
whole thing. That's the beauty of what I think like having the real estate as a side hustle is about. So
No, 1000%. And then having a family, the other element to it for me is like, now I'm like, I can't anticipate like what my kids are gonna want and want to do, right? And I just think back, as a kid, maybe not being able to take advantage of certain opportunities because we didn't have, which,
yeah,
all good. But like, my kid has an interest in cars. Like, let's say he wants to be a Formula One race car driver.
yeah,
It's like one of the most expensive like things to try to do, right? So it's like I wouldn't expect, I don't have that expectation like from my day job that they should be able to fund and fuel every single desire that I have in my life. I'm
yeah,
okay with like going out and doing the work on my own for being able to fuel some of those things.
yeah.
So I look at it that way. It's like when it comes a point in time when my kids like, I want to go do X, I want to start my business, cool. This
That's
this first
excellent.
first property is like for you, son. And like you don't want to go to college, you want to go start this business. You know what? I'm gonna sell that property. Here's your capital to
Yeah,
start the business.
That's such an excellent mindset because people always are complaining about their job. I'm like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. It's like, great, get another one, get a side one,
yeah.
get a side hustle.
Like, and we're in our 20s, right? So we talk about this all the time. Like, bro, you might have to work 18 hours in a day to figure this out right now. But the
Mm.
sacrifices that you're making up front will pay dividends if you do it the right way. So I don't know that, I don't even know if I related it to what you were saying, but
No.
like it's there's just a way to build security for yourself. And I think that doing that slowly, you don't have to be this real estate guru if you have people around you who know what they're doing and you trust them.
Yeah.
So
And I love that. Get rich slow. That's
yeah,
that's
yeah,
dope.
it's like, or get rich for sure. Like maybe not quick, but it'll happen. Like we talk about that a
I
lot
think
now.
that too.
Yeah, I'll take it too. Exactly. I don't need an overnight thing. Like it's not. We're here for a long time. Hopefully.
Money's never been the driving force behind anything really in my life. It's become increasingly important again because I have great responsibility now.
Yeah.
But if I can afford to do the things I desire to do and have experiences in life, cool, man.
Yeah, it's all about experiences. That's great. So we talked a little bit about the kind of the power of networking, and like one of the last things that I want to touch on is you talked about a little bit about networking and then mentoring, because I know that that's a big part of what you do. And I think that a lot of people will look at that like, well, who am I to mentor somebody? Like who I'm personally, we look like we're in our 20s. Like the other 20-year-olds, should they be mentoring people? Can you just speak, because I know you're passionate about it. Can
Yeah.
you just speak a little bit about some of the mentoring that you do for maybe mentor people that are your age as well? I'm not really even sure, or just people that are up and coming and trying to follow in your footsteps.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think one of the things I feel like if you're trying to figure out what do I have to offer or like should I be mentoring is like one of the principles that I try to keep in my mind is like no one should be able to tell you something about yourself that you don't already know, right? So like just being comfortable with who you are and knowing that person, like you'll know your strengths, right? And you'll know your weaknesses. And that's okay too, right? Because your weaknesses may have given you experiences in life that you learned, I'm not that good at that, or I'm not that strong in that area.
Oh, it happened to me. Like when my first job out of school, I was a real estate insurance. No, I'm sorry, not real estate. I was a medical insurance agent. Bro,
I,
I hated it, and I
I
sucked at
remember.
it. And then
I,
that's Yeah, and it's like I knew what I was bad at. Okay, like I checked that off my list. Like I'm not gonna do that anymore.
So guess what? There's a kid right now that's like doing something connected to your world, and that's where your relationship lies. And then one day comes along, they're like, "Yeah, man, I'm thinking about, man, I'm ready to move on. Like, my uncle's like put me on to this like, this insurance sales job. Like, I think I can make a bunch of money. Like, I'm ready to do that." Right away, now you have experiences that you can share with this person.
Yep.
Like, it's not your job or your place, and that's like say, no, terrible idea, I did that. We don't got to take the Todd approach, right? But you can kind of you can definitely say, listen, kid, let me give you some game because I've been through that.
Yep.
That right there is valuable for that person, right? As we're kind of like wrestling with thinking through and working through an idea to make a big decision, like, yo, we're always doing that. Like, how many? Like, I don't even know. I think I read this recently somewhere, and it was like the number of decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis. It's like tens of thousands.
Right. Yeah.
If you got somebody when you're dealing with some things that are a little bit challenging for you to deal with or feel comfortable dealing with on your own, and you can be somebody that they can call and speak to, that right there is invaluable. So, I think we all have something to offer. I just think that you have to then first recognize what those things are. And then at some point make the commitments of like, I'm willing to be open. I'm willing to be vulnerable. I'm willing to share, right? The elements of mentorship though, like are real, right? And some of them I just mentioned, like if you're not willing to do that, again, that's okay because there's fear, there's like selfishness, right? There's a lot of things that like may prohibit you from being in a space that you're willing to provide that, and that's okay. But until you get to that point, like that's when I would advise of like, all right, maybe you shouldn't like seek to like say I want to mentor somebody, or when somebody's engaging me that way, like, listen, man, I love to help. Listen, you know where to find me, but
Yep.
I just don't want to put you in a situation of having an expectation of once a month calls, I'm going to be doing X, Y, and Z for you because I don't know if I can give that right now.
Sure.
Like, that's okay too. But I feel like whatever stage you're at, like you went through a tough experience, you made it through, like that is valuable to somebody. So sharing that, being open about that, right away, you'll find people that you connect with. You'll find people that are curious about that and want to learn more, want to pick your brain, want to then share their experiences with you. And oftentimes it happens very organically.
Yep. That's cool. I think we've covered a lot of different topics, which I wasn't necessarily expecting, but it's a good thing. And I think that you've kind of shown that the network you've built, look, like 50 or 60 people wished you a happy birthday on Instagram, and like you replayed all these stories, like all these people that you look back on in your life that like you've built this network of, some of it's family, some of it's friends. But like I just look at that and I'm like, damn, like Paul has found this like this network of people that has helped him get to where he is. So
he's had an impact on their lives.
exactly. Yeah. That's like
awesome.
so valuable to have that type of impact. Like,
Yeah, it's funny you say that because, damn, you got me thinking. It's definitely dope because, I definitely have a core, like really close group of friends that, have been with me for the long haul, the day ones, if you will. But like I've definitely acquired some amazing relationships along the way. But if I had to probably like pinpoint the thing that has allowed me to find these amazing relationships, because like sometimes it's definitely like hella weird for myself where I'm just like, that person is so dope or like so whatever. It's like, how did we get cool? Or like why are they like me?
yeah, I think yeah.
But I think the thing is for me is I've always, and I don't know where it comes from. So again, I'm digging here. It's like I just always try to I seek to add value. You know what I mean? Like just through organic conversation, it's like the takeaway is like, oh, that like, okay, I'm gonna take a mental note. That person's like about to go do this or working on this, or they like this, or whatever the case may be. And I don't know, sometimes the way my brain works is just like I see that connection. And then it's like later on, I'm at the store. It's like, oh yeah, they did say they like Skittles. And it's like, you know what? I'm gonna see them tomorrow. I'm gonna buy a bag of Skittles.
Paul, you don't even realize you did this for me. About 4 or 5 months ago, maybe 6 months ago, I wasn't even like looking for a new position in my career, but you sent me an article or a link to like youth and youth basketball like ambassador in like China or something for the NBA or junior NBA. I don't even know if you remember this. And you're like, yo, you should look into this position. Like, this is pretty cool. This is stuff you've done. And just to have somebody like that in my corner, yeah, who sends me resources that he's like, yo, Paul was thinking about me for whatever fucking reason. Like, I don't know why. Like, but that is so like, that's powerful. Like so very powerful.
Yeah, I try to do that. Like, just be cognizant if I see a connection and I think it could be valuable. And that's the other thing too, is like half the shit I probably say, do, or give isn't worth much, right? But people appreciate it nonetheless. And then I think sometimes there are those like things manifest and you're like, wow, look at that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's one of the things that we do at the end of our show is so our podcast called The Weekly Juice, right? We're giving knowledge in your cups, and we call the segment The Last Drop. And what we want you to do is just give us some sort of resource that you've used, whether that be a mindset resource, whether that's helped you with, your side hustle, real estate, a networking tool, something that you've used that has helped you become successful.
That's tangible that someone else could potentially use.
Exactly.
Or go to look for first.
Finish my sentence right there. That's awesome.
Yeah,
We put you on the spot. We didn't tell you that we were going to do this.
That is a good one. I was literally about to say, for me personally, it's two things that made the world a difference: people and fucking Google. Like I didn't grow up with that.
That's
like
great.
Enough where like I didn't grow up with that. So like it's been a learned behavior to be like, oh wait, I can just go on Google, type it in, carve out enough time that I can peruse, find things, read things, learn more, point me in another direction, pick up, gives me enough context to then maybe go ask somebody, have the conversation with somebody in my network, right? Like I can get really far, really quick, starting from Google, which is, it still blows my mind. And it probably sounds like the dumbest thing that somebody shared, but like, it is so real. But I will try to be mature enough to give like some real things. One, I think, so, I mean, I read a ton, listen to a bunch of random podcasts, but I got ADD. So I never like either read the whole book or I never I can't say I've listened to every episode of a specific podcast. Maybe Knucklehead's like 75% of, which is like a very, very high number for me. But two things that I'll say. One is a book. Oddly enough, I got this when I was at the Sixers. Corey, you might have gotten this book and been asked to read. And I'm struggling to think of the name, but the principle. You're
talking about the book that the organization
Leadership and Self-Deception.
Leadership and Self-Deception, right? And I've read Leadership and Self-Deception a couple times now.
Great book.
Which is one of the few, a few books that legitimately from front to back. And what I'm actually amazed at is the first time I read it, I saw it one way and felt like it was a bunch of it I didn't understand. And I was looking at it through the context of, again, organizational leadership. At that point in time, I wasn't a leader in an organization, right? But then the second time I read it, it was most beneficial in my life in helping me to think about how to be a better husband. And it has nothing to do with that, right? So for me, I think it's the principle of it and how you, channel emotion and manage emotion and try to put yourself in the right type of mind frame. It's applicable to pretty much anything. So, I think for that reason, that's a great book and a great resource. And then trying to think of another thing.
That was valuable. Good. Yeah, that was a good one.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah. And so first of all, I want to thank you again for coming on. You're my guy, and it's just cool to watch you grow to like the role you're in now, watch the family grow. Like, I know you and I have a lifelong relationship, so I really appreciate you coming on and just sharing your story. It's you probably don't realize how much it's helped me even in my tracks and my career. So I appreciate it.
No, I
But
appreciate you, man.
But one of the other things is, if let's just say somebody saw something from this episode and they were like interested in hoops or interested in networking or some of the things that you shared, maybe is there some way? Are you willing to share ways for people to get in touch with you? Like maybe even just DM you on Instagram. That's probably the easiest. I don't want to give out your personal email, but like,
No, 1000%. Question, comment, want to chop it up, hit me up. BLK_PAUL, Black Paul on all social channels. That's me in the flesh.
sir,
And I definitely engage heavy. So hit me up. Or if you want to be super formal, LinkedIn, I definitely try to get back to people. And, I usually actually, on a specific day of the week, I usually try to carve out an hour or two just to have kind of introductory conversations with anybody that reaches out to me. So
it's valuable. So networking is Paul's biggest thing, but yeah, man.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Yeah.
I appreciate y'all having me, man. Bev, man, the beard coming in nicely. Corey.
Trying to catch that 33, man. Trying to look good.
See y'all.
Thanks, Paul. We appreciate it, bro.
Have a good night, y'all. Peace.